Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and greetings from the REMAX Mid-States and Dixie Region. Today, we are going to be talking about communication and how it relates to the youngest generation of homebuyers. Now, this generation is a very unique group, so what I'd like to do is take a deep look at the whys and hows of reaching them and doing business with them. And regardless if we're looking at a REMAX office in Kansas City or New Orleans or anywhere in between of the 6.5 state region, you're going to pretty well see what we consider a melting pot of cultures, of generations. And I think in looking at that, regardless if you've got baby boomers in your office mixing with the Generation Y or Generation X, or even some of the older agents who may be traditionalists, the oldest generation, you really got to find a way to be able to communicate, with all of those different types of generations, regardless of which one you're reaching out and trying to do business with as a home buyer. So what I'd like to do is first take a look at understanding all of the generations. So if you look at the oldest generation at the top there, we've got the traditionalists. Basically these are the folks that built the United States as we know it. They're the greatest generation. And they're obviously the smallest generation at this time, too. Then you've got the baby boomers. And we've known the baby boomers for a long, long time. They have literally driven the culture, the economy in the United States for the past 40 years. And they're very much what we call the we generation. They're very much into the team concept. And of all the generations, they pretty well have the strongest work ethic. Then you have Gen X. Gen X, they're more of the generation of data and information driven individuals. They trust their peers and kind of have this prove it or lose it mentality. Now, you may also know them as the latchkey kids due to their dual income parents, which, basically created a situation where they had to be very independent, very resourceful, very self-sufficient. And then lastly, you've got Generation Y. And we know them by all kinds of different names, but they are the largest generation in the United States. They're 50% of the world's population. And it doesn't make a difference of, what you call them. It could be millennials, it could be the Echo boomers or iPod generation. A lot of people now know them as the Peter Pan generation too. The one thing that is for certain is that, literally the web is their playground, and they are experts when it comes to social media with Facebook and Twitter and Dig and LinkedIn and Tumblr and Reddit and all those other websites that you see on a regular basis. Now, if we look at this, and I kind of like to break down the millennials. I'm going to refer to them more so as the millennials than Generation Y throughout this program. But if you look at this, there are different segments of the millennials. And you can see starting at the top left there, we've got the hippennial. I can make the world a better place. Think about, singing Kumbaya or that old 7-Up commercial, everybody's singing on top of the hill, right? Can't we all just get along? That's kind of what their mentality is. And then we've got what people typically stereotype the millennials as is the gadget guru there on the top right. It's a great day to be me. Very tech savvy. They're the individuals, when you always have that flashing VCR, you can't get the time set. They're the people that can take apart the VCR and set the time as well. I mean, they truly are very, very, very technology oriented. And then you've got the millennial mom. I love to work out, travel, and pamper my baby. They're actually emulating their mother. I mean, the generation of parents to the millennials are one of the most nurturing, caring, coddling generations of parents that has ever been seen. So the millennial mom is kind of emulating what her mother did for her as well. Then you've got clean and green. Think Greenpeace, think tree huggers. The millennial generation is actually one of the most eco-minded generations that we've ever seen. And there is obviously maybe an extreme group in there that believe in the clean and green aspect. Then the bottom two, they're just a little bit different. You've got the anti-millennial, which kind of goes back to the 80s kind of feel of like, hey, it's all about, I'm too busy with my business, my family to worry about anything else, kind of a little bit more egocentric. And then you've got what we call the old school millennial, which isn't real into social media. They think that connecting on through social media, texting, all of those things is just a little bit too impersonal. So they actually prefer having those face-to-face type of meetings. But regardless of what generation that you look at here, all of them do have some very common characteristics. Not a big surprise. I talked about them being coddled, right? Entitled, demanding. They are one of the more I guess, generations in need of mentoring. And you're going to see that as you start working with those clients. They do need a lot of attention. Also, special, unique, like to be loved. They basically want you to treat them like they are your only customer. They want to feel that unique experience with you. Confident, motivated, and goal oriented. A lot of people don't believe that they are, but they are extremely results oriented generation. They definitely have goals that they want to be, and they know what they want to have in life. Also, team oriented. This is a very tight knit generation. And it's very important to highlight that they are tight with one another. It is difficult for another generation to make their way into this circle of trust, right, that the millennials have kind of created. But once you're in, once you break through that circle and you have a younger generation or millennial client that's buying homes from you, you're able to then reach out to all of their friends because they have already built that trust with you too. And then you've got 24/7 gratification. I want it now, now, now. I think we pretty well all know how this one goes. They are just an instant generation in a lot of ways. You've got multiple personalities, online versus real life. I mean, they literally have multiple identities. They've got their online identity, which, if you've probably noticed, is a little bit more brash, a little bit more bold. And then you've got their real life identity, which a lot of times it's not that they're introverts whatsoever. It's not that they lack social skills, but you can definitely see that their personalities are definitely different in real life versus their online identity. And they are definitely expert multitaskers. Any of you who have millennial children know exactly what I'm talking about. That you walk in the room and they're texting, they're on their computer, they're playing a video game. I mean, they just know how to do it all, and they do it very, very well. And then ethnically and racially diverse. I mean, this generation has only read or heard about Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, or, Rosa Parks in the back of the bus. I mean, those are things they really don't know much about. So for them, there truly isn't much of a racial line or a color line. I mean, and you can see that in the relationships and the friends that they have. And then lastly, tech and web savvy. For the most part, all of them are tech and web savvy, more so than any other generation. I think we all have kind of noticed that. So why are they important? Why, and when you describe, this generation as being coddled and entitled and demanding and all these other things, why are they important? Why would we want to do business, right, with a generation that's kind of described in such a manner? Well, number one is if you look at the average age of the first-time home buyer, it's age 31. All right. So if you break down and you look at the age pyramid, right, of all the different generations, and you can see, here's a great look at it. Right now, we've got the older millennials, age 30 to 34, that are out there. There's 20 million millennials buying homes for the very first time. But look at the backlog here. We've got another 63 million, yes, millennial generations that are going to be coming up and buying homes for the first time in the next 5 to 10 years. That is a ton of first-time home buyers. So, I mean, if you look at this market, and you really need to understand that this is a market that you have to tap into. Again, they're going to drive this economy now for the next 30 years. It's going to be their culture. They're driving the economy. They're driving the influence throughout the United States. So you have to be able to understand how to communicate with them, how to market to them, and be able to reach them. All right, so let's talk about who is your first-time home buyer. Number one, 38% of all home buyers are your first-time home buyer. That's according to the 2013 NAR profile of home buyers and sellers. And it's not a big surprise that 56% of first-time home buyers are married couples. But it gets kind of interesting after that. If you look at this, then the next biggest segment is single females. 19% of your first-time home buyers are single females. You can see 13% are unmarried couples, and we've got 11% here as single males. So, I mean, beyond the married couples, you've got a couple of emerging niches that you probably need to focus on a little bit more in the single female as well as the unmarried couples. The little bit of a switch, I guess, shift in what we're seeing in that from 2012 to 2013, the single female dropped about 2 percentage points as far as the first-time home buyer. The unmarried couples increased 2%. So I guess people are just shacking up a little bit more from an economy standpoint. I'm not sure what, but that is definitely a rising segment as well. And if you look at the age groups of your first-time home buyer, and it's not a big surprise, you can see the big spike there, right? But 86% of your first-time home buyers are a combination of Generation Y and Generation X. And I think there's some other interesting statistics that I always kind of like to take a look at. The median income of your first-time home buyer is about $62,000. And of those home buyers that are under the age of 44, 96% of them go to the internet as their number one home buying resource. Think about that. Almost 100% of your buyers are going online as their first place that they're going to go to begin that home buying research. By the way, number 2 is you, the realtor, and number 3 is your yard sign. But 96%. So, this becomes imperative that if you don't have a really good website with good connections, great search engine optimization, and you don't understand how to reach out, right, and really be able to communicate with the younger generations, you're going to be in trouble. So how do you get connected? How do you reach out to a generation that is constantly basically recreating their own rules? I think first we have to understand, where we stand with them. And it's a whole different paradigm shift for you. Think about this, and think back for some of us a little bit, back more than others, but think about the Challenger shuttle explosion, the debut of MTV, Chernobyl, all of these different shows, the $6 Million Man, Fantasy Island, you remember the plane, the celebrities, the political figures. I'm pretty sure there's not a lot of millennials that probably know who is in that bottom left-hand corner, being Jimmy Hoffa, right? And even, the really cool technology with 8-track tapes and the first cell phone. I mean, this is just ridiculous. But Generation Y, the millennials, have little to no memory of any of these items. And if you look at communicating with them, and if you are Gen X even, or baby boomers, or traditionalists, this creates a Grand Canyon of a generation gap between them. So, what do you do? How are you going to market to them? So let me give you a couple tips on that. Number one, simple. Now, this is not, keep in mind, they are not Generation X. So bullet points are good. I would definitely make them meaningful, informational bullet points, not just marketing fluff. Authentic. And this is really important. Don't be fake with this generation. They smell that coming a mile away. You got to be genuine and not all about business with them. Remember, you're building a relationship with them. If they feel like they've entered corporate America, you're in trouble. You got to be genuine and authentic with these folks. Hip. When I talk about hip, think about some of these companies. Ben & Jerry's, Trader Joe's, Whole Foods. Think about Apple, right? I think that probably one of the most coolest companies out there today is probably Apple. And they've been consistently hip over and over and over the decades. And if you watch what they do and how they do their marketing, you really can't go wrong. Another one is quick. Obviously these folks have a short attention span when it comes to marketing, but if you look at it, it makes total sense. They've grown up in a generation of just being completely overwhelmed by media of all types, TV, radio, print, billboards, web. They get it from all different directions consistently, and they've learned to be able to kind of block some of that out. Also sustainable. To me, this goes back a little bit to the Apple. If you look at Apple and the TV commercials and the marketing campaigns they've done throughout the years, they're able to create a campaign that will be memorable throughout time. I guess one of my favorite commercials over this past holiday season was the kid, right? Everyone thought he was on his phone, during Christmas. And it's an Apple commercial, and he's playing around, and actually what he's doing is he's shooting a video. He's editing the video all on his phone, and on Christmas morning he plays that Christmas video for his family, and it brings tears to everyone's eyes. It's a memorable marketing experience by Apple. So if you can find a way to create that consistent message that's sustainable, that's quick, hip, authentic, simple, you've got a great part of your marketing approach. Also, other ways to market to this particular generation is number one, social networking sites. Okay, this is not a big surprise here. We know that. If you are not on Facebook, if you're not doing Twitter, if you're another one that I'll talk about here in a little while is Tumblr. You need to get there, and I'll kind of elaborate on that a little bit. Extreme sporting events. And you've heard about them. You may not have gone to many of them, but the younger generation folks are going to them in just droves. But if you look at this, think about X Games. Think about cage fighting. or extreme surfing or long distance marathons or downhill skateboarding. Or, the more I guess popular ones that I'm seeing would be kind of like the color runs where they throw paint all over themselves and they run for 5Ks, or the warrior dashes where they have the obstacle courses and that kind of stuff. Those are type of extreme sporting events that you could align yourself and be a sponsor with and have a presence there. That would be a great way to reach out to them. Also, Gen Y street teams, and this is something that's a little bit newer, where you hit the streets with a team to provide exclusive information or pictures or videos and free stuff, to where you could go out there and make it, maybe it's a community event, a festival or some kind of like that. Maybe it's just a busy street corner where you go out, that's going to one of the more popular places for the younger generation to go to. You could go there and have a Gen Y street team. Also partnering with youth-oriented companies, as well as what I would like, I would also partner with cause marketing efforts, Komen, CMN, Habitat for Humanity, whatever you're doing. This is one of the most giving generations that we've ever seen. They believe in giving back to their community, and anyone that they see giving back to their community, they like to do business with. It really is. So look at the youth-oriented companies within your town. Also look at some of the cause marketing efforts as well. And lastly, Gen Y word of mouth. This is perhaps one of the most outspoken generations that we've ever seen when it comes to opinions. All you have to do is go on Facebook for just a little while to realize that they like to seek others' opinions of different things, and they like to give their opinions. You do a good job. You do a good job with them. Man, this is going to be one of those generations that taps into it, and they will definitely have great referrals coming your way. And the last thing on the page there is just the formula for marketing success, and this is literally Apple's marketing plan. Clean plus simple equals hip, right? No fuss, no muss. If you keep it simple, you keep it authentic, you keep it personable, you're going to be hip from that perspective. It's really, really a very easy marketing approach. So how do you not market to them? I think that's just as important as how to market to them. Number one, hype. Don't send them out marketing promotional fluff. They're not going to read it. Again, keep it short, but make it meaningful. Also, email blasts. I've watched this. I think it works pretty well with other generations. They're just not into those blast emails. They want something that's a little bit more customized, a little bit more personal for them. Also, push marketing, and I've given you the definition just to kind of understand what push marketing is, but that's taking the product to the customer via any means, right? Direct selling, point of sales displays, end caps, trade shows. To me, this is really good for fast moving goods. I don't think it's really good for real estate whatsoever. The kiosks that you see in malls, I don't think that's a really great use of your funds whatsoever. But you're going to be into more what I would call pull marketing, where you do such a phenomenal job with customer service, with getting them the right price, on the home that they want to buy, really negotiating that whole deal, that you literally pull clients to you through your level of customer service. So, that's kind of a little bit of a different approach. And that's actually more of a philosophy than it is on not how to market to them whatsoever. Facts, are you kidding? Just no on the facts, okay? Cold calling, this generation perceives cold calling to be a little bit too aggressive, a little bit too in your face. I think you can warm a lot of those conversations up by doing more on social media, by becoming their friends and really getting involved, so that when you do contact them directly via, if it's a Facebook message or Twitter or whatever you're going to do, it's not going to be cold anymore. It's going to be more of a warm situation. And the last thing is, trying to be hip. Again, they're going to smell fakeness coming a mile away. So don't be that person. Don't be that guy in the polyester jacket with the plaid pants with the long sideburns, trying to be hip and just not making it. Okay, definitely try to be more authentic. Try to be genuine. All right, so how do you personally connect with these folks, right? Definitely texting is okay. In fact, I would say that probably 95% of this generation texts more than any other generation out there. In fact, 83% of millennials sleep with their phone. And if you do have millennial children, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You get that random text in the middle of the night. Hey, mom or dad, what is for dinner? You're like, what are you thinking about? Why were you thinking about? Well, I woke up, I was hungry, just wondered what we were having for dinner later. They literally sleep with their phone. That's how they communicate. And you got to do it on their terms. Social media wise, I'm just reiterating this, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Tumblr. Tumblr is a great newer social media. It's kind of like an extended blog. Facebook has pictures, has what I consider more of a micro blog, kind of like Twitter. But Tumblr, you can do more pictures, you can do extended blogs. It's a lot like Facebook, in a lot of different ways. But you might want to go check that out. And to me, social media is one of those deals where engaging in the social media arena is kind of like walking around in your underwear without curtains on the windows, right? It may not be pretty, but it's real. So, if you're one of those individuals out there who are just simply feeding their listings constantly to their Facebook or their social media, you're missing the boat. You know what I mean? You have to make your presence real and sincere. I'm not saying go out and share all of your intimate personal details with the world, and I do see people doing that as well, but, this is one of those scenarios where you do want to blend, business with personal. Let them know a little bit about you. When you're going out and you're trying to reach out and really build a relationship with folks through social media, you need to make it personal. From your perspective, I would say get out there and definitely, do something that makes them feel their individuality and their uniqueness, which is the next point there. This is really important to them. You have to respect them. I would suggest that, you go out there and I know a lot of people are creating groups within their Facebook page now. Create a group of those potentially young generation clients. And then be very diligent about liking and commenting or retweeting or sharing, right, information in their social media. They're going to notice that. They're going to notice that you're trying to make a concerted effort to have a connection with them. And that, I think, is perfect. For those of you who have kids, befriend their, just say, hey, I'm going to friend some of your friends. I mean, that's usually okay. That's usually not very, in their face kind of approach to things. Also, their parents, possibly their grandparents, don't forget about them. They're going to want to talk to you too. And when you talk to their parents, which are probably going to be maybe older Gen Xers or baby boomers, you're going to have to switch up your communication tactics. Those folks like face-to-face conversations more than texting and such, or longer, more informational emails, right? So you're going to make sure you have to switch those things up a little bit when you are doing that. And then lastly, and I kind of said a little bit about this before, the printed materials. They need to be simple, sleek, modern, be very engaging, have really meaningful content. You saw me refer earlier to this generation as the Peter Pan generation as well. Honestly, that they kind of got that name because a lot of people feel like they're delaying their rites of passage to adulthood. And I found an interesting grid here a while back, and you can see that 35% of Gen Ys are homeowners, 37% are renting. But if you look at this, and I think this is interesting, 26% of them still live with their parents or live in student housing. Thus the Peter Pan, deferring that passage to adulthood by living with their parents or staying in school for an extended period of time. I also found this, and I thought this was really interesting. Among those at home or school, 45% are between the ages of 25 to 32 years old. I'll let that sink in for just a second. 32 years old. And I got to tell you, this is not their fault. It honestly isn't. And I know we just went through an incredibly bad downturn of the economy. And that really created a lot of issues for the millennial generation. Number one, we looked at the younger baby boomers were no longer able to retire. The older baby boomers lost everything in their savings and their investments. So a lot of them had to come out of retirement and back into the workforce. With that happening, it didn't allow the Generation X folks just below them to move up in their careers, and it didn't create any new jobs for the millennials. In fact, if you look at it, 25% of the millennials who graduated from college were not able to get a job in their degree, in their area of expertise. They had to settle on other jobs. A lot of them had to go back home and live with mom and dad because they couldn't afford to do anything else. So I mean, that's kind of when you talk about their rites of passage and why there are so many millennials living at home, there is a reason for that. There was a huge domino effect that occurred. And I with all my different studies and research, I always kind of like to say, why are they called Generation Y? And I found, a very scientific approach I found to why they are named Generation Y. And here's kind of what I've seen. And I know, what I'm hopefully, for those Generation Y folks who are listening to this, I'm not making fun of you. This actually makes a really good point. It doesn't make a difference if that home buyer, wears baggy clothes, or has piercings or tattoos or even purple or orange or red hair, or communicates or talks differently than you. The last time I checked, 520s make 100. And I'm pretty sure their money is going to spend just the same as any other home buyer. The difference is that you have to adjust to them. You have to change the way that you communicate and the way that you do business with them. That is critical. But if you do look at this, now really the scientific description of this was that in 1993 in the Ad Age magazine, Generation Y was how they referred to the teens of the day. And I got to tell you about this generation, even though we're looking at 26% of them are still living with mom and dad, I can assure you that 90% of millennials envision becoming homeowners sooner than later. So you definitely have to be able to relate, on their particular level. So, okay, I've laid out a lot of information for you. Now, I just want to kind of wrap it up here and say, the one thing you have to realize is, the millennial generation is definitely watching you. They are watching you on all the social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Tumblr. They're watching you at community events and at your business, and they're watching to see if you are going to be a good fit for them. They want to know they have a relationship, right, with the individual who's going to help them make one of the biggest decisions in their life. And your job is simple. All you have to do is engage them, to befriend them, to make them feel wanted and unique and special. So I'm going to challenge you that over the next 5 years, you're going to need to change how you do business. And in some ways, you're probably going to have to reinvent yourself. Because I can assure you that the millennial generation is your future in real estate. And you need to either embrace doing business with them, or you're going to be left in the dust as they take hold of the economy and our culture for the next 30 years. And they need you. I mean, that is the great news. They need you. They are your future, and they need you just as much as you need them. So, all right, folks, well, that wraps things up. I really appreciate you taking some time to sit down with me and learn a little bit more about how to reach the next generation. And I hope you have a wonderful day.